I found a sweater in my closet that wasn't mine. Did you buy this? I asked. He said, isn't that yours? Then I checked the footage and saw her wearing my. At the time, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It didn't feel like cheating. It felt placed. Like something had been quietly added into my life without my permission, and I was only just noticing it. It was a Saturday morning in Denver. Cold enough that I finally decided to switch out my clothes for the season. Logan had already left early, said he needed to check on his site before lunch. That wasn't unusual. His schedule moved around a lot. I stopped questioning it a long time ago. I was sitting on the floor of our bedroom, pulling down stacks of sweaters, making piles to keep and donate, trying to feel productive in a way that didn't require thinking too much. That's when I saw it. A cream-colored sweater, folded neatly on the top shelf behind a stack of my jeans. Not shoved in. Not wrinkled. It looked intentional, like it had been placed there carefully. I stared at it for a second, waiting for my brain to catch up. I knew my clothes. I wasn't the kind of person who forgot entire pieces of my wardrobe, especially not something that looked exactly like something I would pick out myself. I pulled it down slowly, turning it over in my hands. Same style I usually wore. Same soft material. Even the brand was one I liked. I tried to make it make sense. Maybe Logan bought it for me and forgot to give it to me. Maybe someone left it here. But we hadn't had anyone over in weeks, and even then, no one I knew wore my exact size. I tried it on. It fit perfectly. That's when something in my chest dropped in a way I couldn't explain. Not panic. Not yet. Just something off. I folded it back up and set it on the bed. I didn't want to jump to anything stupid over a sweater. When Logan got home later, I kept it casual. I held it up like it didn't matter. Did you buy this? He glanced at it for maybe 2 seconds. Isn't that yours? No, I said, trying to laugh it off. I've never seen it before. He shrugged, already halfway to the kitchen. You probably forgot. That should have been the end of it. Except I don't forget things like that. Not clothes. Not something that fits me perfectly and looks exactly like my style. I let it go out loud, but it didn't leave my head. A few days later, I found black leggings. Same shelf. Same situation. Not mine. My size. This time I didn't laugh when I brought it up. Logan, seriously. Where are these coming from? He looked irritated, like I was asking something unreasonable. Why are you making it a big deal? It's probably stuff you bought and forgot about. I didn't forget, I said, quieter this time. He just shook his head and dropped it. That was the moment I stopped asking. Because it wasn't just that he didn't know. It felt like he didn't want to know. Over the next 2 weeks, more things showed up. A blouse. A scarf. A pair of shoes still in the box. All in my closet. All my size. All placed like they belonged there. I didn't tell anyone. Not Stella. Not anyone at work. I didn't even bring it up again with Logan. I just started paying attention. I started noticing his schedule more. The days he left earlier than usual. The days he came home late and didn't have much to say about where he'd been. It all fit too easily into the routine I had already accepted. That's what bothered me the most. Nothing about his behavior screamed obvious betrayal. It was quiet, predictable, easy to ignore. Until the clothes. One night, I mentioned installing a camera in the living room. I told him I'd seen something online about break-ins nearby. I said it casually, like it was just a practical decision. He didn't argue. Didn't question it. Didn't even seem interested. Yeah, sure, he said. If it makes you feel better. That should have felt reassuring. Instead, it felt like permission. I set it up the next day. Nothing complicated. Just one camera angled toward the front door and part of the living room. Enough to see who came in and out. For a few days, nothing happened. I almost convinced myself I was overthinking everything. That I was about to create a problem out of nothing. Then, one afternoon, I checked the footage while I was at work. I don't even remember why I opened it. It wasn't planned. I think I just needed to prove to myself that I was being ridiculous. At first, it was normal. Empty house. Silence. The same stillness I expected. Then the front door opened. And a woman walked in like she belonged there. She didn't hesitate. Didn't look around nervously. She took her shoes off by the door like she had done it before. Like it was routine. I felt my stomach drop, but I couldn't look away. She walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, poured herself a drink. No rush. No fear. Just comfortable. Then she went down the hallway. Into my bedroom. I was sitting at my desk in the middle of a workday, staring at my phone like it had stopped being real. At first, I thought the obvious thing. He's cheating. But something about the way she moved didn't match that. She wasn't sneaking. She wasn't careful. She was at home. She came back into view a few minutes later, holding something. My sweater. The cream-colored one. I watched her slip it on like it belonged to her. Then she disappeared back into the bedroom. That's when I stood up so fast I knocked my chair over. I didn't think. I just grabbed my bag, left work early without explaining anything, and drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. By the time I got there, The house was quiet again. Empty. I walked inside slowly, like something might still be there. Everything looked the same. Nothing out of place. Except it wasn't the same anymore. I went straight to the bedroom and opened my closet. The sweater was back. Folded. Exactly where I had found it the first time. And I knew, without needing to check anything else, that I wasn't imagining it. Someone else had been living pieces of my life inside my house. And my husband knew. I just didn't know how much. Or why. I didn't call Logan right away. I thought about it. I stood there in the bedroom with my closet door open, staring at that sweater like it might explain itself if I looked at it long enough. But I already knew one thing for sure. If I called him while I was still shaking, he would control the conversation. He would tell me I misunderstood something, or make me sound paranoid, or drag it out until I doubted what I had seen with my own eyes. So I didn't call. I sat at the kitchen table instead with my phone in my hand and watched the footage again. This time I forced myself to pay attention to details. She came in at 1:14. Used a key. That part made my stomach turn more than anything. She had a key to my house. Logan had given another woman a key to my house, and I had been moving through my days not knowing there was someone else who could let herself in whenever she wanted. She was there for 43 minutes. She poured herself water, checked her phone, walked into the bedroom, came back out, sat on the couch, then went back into the bedroom again. Nothing rushed. Nothing guilty. She moved like someone who had been told she was welcome. I paused the video and zoomed in as much as I could without making the image useless. Brown hair. Younger than me by a few years, maybe. Slim build. Neutral makeup. Simple gold hoops. The kind of woman you'd pass at a coffee shop and never think twice about. That somehow made it worse. There was nothing dramatic about her. Nothing that made this feel like a movie. It felt ordinary. Quiet. Real. I watched her go into my bedroom again, then I stopped the footage. Because I wasn't ready to see more. I heard Logan's car pull in just after 6. Normally, I would have met him halfway without thinking. Maybe asked how his day went, maybe started dinner, maybe kept moving through the evening like every other night. Instead, I stayed at the kitchen table and waited for him to walk in and see my face. He did. He stopped in the doorway and looked at me for half a second too long. Not panic. Recognition. That was what hit me first. He already knew something had changed. You okay? He asked. It was such a normal question that I almost laughed. I slid my phone across the table toward him. Who is she? He didn't touch the phone. What? The woman with the key to our house. He went still. Not confused. Not defensive. Still. I hit play before he could say anything and turned the screen so he could watch. I didn't look at him while it played. I watched the footage instead, like I needed to keep proving it to myself. When the clip ended, the silence in the kitchen felt thick and ugly. Finally, he exhaled and sat down across from me. Hazel, he said, and I hated that he used my name like that, like he was about to explain something difficult but reasonable. Okay. I need you to let me talk. That sentence made me colder than yelling would have. Because he wasn't denying it. I folded my arms and said nothing. He rubbed his face once hard. Her name is Maya. I didn't answer. He kept going, probably because I didn't interrupt him. I met her through a project overlap months ago. Marketing side. It wasn't supposed to turn into anything. There it was. The lazy little line people use when they want to make betrayal sound accidental. Like an affair is weather. Like it just drifts in. How long? I asked. He hesitated. About 6 months. 6 months. I actually looked away when he said it because I needed something solid to focus on. The edge of the table. The light over the sink. Anything. 6 months meant holidays. Birthdays. Work trips. Late meetings. Normal dinners. Normal mornings. 6 months of me living in one marriage while he built another version of it somewhere behind my back. And she has a key, I said. He looked down. Yeah. I laughed once. It came out sharp and ugly. You gave your girlfriend a key to my house. Our house, he said automatically. That almost made me lose it. No, I said. Don't do that. Not right now. Don't stand there and say our house like that means anything. He leaned back, jaw tight now, like I was the one making this difficult. She thought we were basically done, he said. I told her things were complicated. I stared at him. That was the part he chose to defend. Not the key. Not the lying. Not bringing another woman into our bedroom. That she had believed his version of events. What exactly did you tell her? I asked. That we were disconnected. That we were living together because it was easier until we figured things out. I felt something in me settle in the worst possible way. Not calm. Clarity. So he hadn't just lied to me. He had narrated my life for someone else and made me a side character in it. And the clothes. I asked. He blinked, like he hadn't expected that to be the part one cared about. What about them? I almost said, are you serious? But I didn't want to give him anything emotional to hide behind. The sweater. The leggings. The blouse. The scarf. The shoes. Why are things in my closet? He looked uncomfortable for the first time. I bought some stuff for her to keep here, he said. So she didn't have to carry a bag back and forth. I just stared at him. The cruelty of that was so casual, he didn't even seem to hear it in his own voice. Then I asked the question I had been trying not to ask since the first sweater. Why do they all look like me? That one landed. He looked at the counter, then the floor, then finally at me, but only for a second. I don't know. That's not an answer. I picked things I thought looked good. On her, I said. He didn't respond. Or on me. Still nothing. And that silence told me more than whatever explanation he could have come up with. Because I suddenly understood what had been bothering me from the start. It wasn't just that another woman had been in my house. It was that she had been fitted into my space. Styled into my life. Soft colors I wore. Simple things I would buy. Pieces chosen by a man who knew exactly what I looked like in them. It made me feel sick in a way cheating alone hadn't yet. I stood up from the table so fast the chair scraped hard against the floor. You need to leave. He looked up immediately. Hazel, come on. No. You need to leave right now. I live here. You don't get to say that to me tonight. He stood too, but slower, like he was trying not to escalate. That fake calm made me want to throw something. I'm trying to be honest now, he said. I laughed again, and this time there was nothing controlled about it. Now? You're trying to be honest now? After 6 months? After giving her a key? After letting her walk around in my bedroom wearing clothes you picked because they looked like me? His face changed at that. Not guilt. Not really. More like he was finally hearing how bad it sounded out loud. Hazel, it wasn't like that. I stepped closer. Then tell me what it was like. He opened his mouth and nothing came out. Exactly. I pointed toward the front door. Get out. He stood there for another second, maybe expecting me to back down. I didn't. Finally, he grabbed his keys off the counter. He paused near the door. We need to talk about this when you calm down. That was the last thing he said before leaving. When the door shut behind him, the whole house felt wrong. I locked it immediately. Then I stood there staring at the lock like it could fix something. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying the footage in my head. The way she took off her shoes by the door. The way she moved through the kitchen like she knew where things were. The way she wore that sweater like it belonged to her. Around 2 a.m, I got out of bed and went back to the closet. I pulled every unfamiliar thing down and laid it across the floor. The sweater. The leggings. The blouse. The scarf. The shoes. When I looked at them all together, it was even worse. Because separately, they were just pieces. Together, they made a pattern. They were all things I would wear. Not exact copies of things I owned, but close enough to feel deliberate. Same palette. Same shapes. Same kind of softness. I sat on the floor in front of them until sunrise. The next morning Stella called because I had canceled brunch with some weak excuse the night before. The second I heard her voice, I almost broke. But I didn't want to say it out loud yet. Once I said it, it became fully real. You sound weird, she said. I didn't sleep. What happened? I looked down at the pile of clothes on my bedroom floor. And for the first time, I said it. I think Logan brought another woman into the house. There was a pause. Then Stella said, very quietly, okay. Start from the beginning. So I did. Not every detail. Not at first. Just enough for her to understand the shape of it. The clothes. The camera. The footage. The key. She didn't interrupt until I mentioned the clothes matching my style. Then she said, Hazel, that's not normal. I know. No, I mean the affair part is awful, obviously, but the rest of it? That's something else. That was the first time I felt even slightly less crazy. Because that was what I kept circling back to. Not just that he cheated. Not just that he lied. But that he blurred me into it. He brought someone into my space and dressed her in a version of me. Stella told me to change the locks if I could. I called a locksmith an hour later. While I waited, Logan texted. Can we talk? Then a minute later. I'm sorry. Then. Please don't do anything drastic before we talk. That one made me so angry I almost threw my phone across the room. Do anything drastic. Like I was the unstable one. Like changing the locks on a house another woman had a key to would be me overreacting. I didn't answer. By noon the locks were changed. I bagged up every piece of clothing that wasn't mine and shoved it into the hall closet because I couldn't stand looking at it anymore. Then I sat on the couch in a house that suddenly didn't feel like mine and tried to figure out what came next. I thought about calling a lawyer. I thought about calling Logan's mother. I thought about driving to his office and throwing the bag of clothes at him in front of everyone. None of those thoughts stayed long enough to become action. Instead, I opened the footage again. This time, I made myself watch all of it. She came in smiling at something on her phone. She poured water. She wandered down the hall. She disappeared into the bedroom. Then she came back out in the cream sweater. A few minutes later, she returned wearing the scarf. Not like someone trying on random clothes. Like someone checking options. Like someone deciding who to be in that house. My stomach turned so hard, I had to pause it again. Then there was one more thing I had missed the first time. She stood in front of the hallway mirror, turned slightly to the side, and smiled. Not a huge smile. Not gloating. Just small. Private. Satisfied. Like she could see a future in that reflection. And that was when it stopped feeling like I had just caught my husband cheating. It felt like I had interrupted something much quieter and uglier. Something that had been growing in my house while I was still living in it. By late afternoon, I knew two things. I was not letting Logan back in that night. And I needed to know whether Maya understood what she had actually been walking into. Because if he lied to her the way he lied to me, then this whole thing was even more twisted than I thought. I just didn't know yet if talking to her would make it better. Or destroy whatever was left of me. I didn't expect her to reach out first. I was sitting on the couch late that night, lights off, just the TV on for noise I wasn't really watching, when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. Then I opened it. Hi. This is Maya. I think we need to talk. My chest tightened so fast it actually hurt. For a second, I just stared at the message. No explanation. No apology. Just that. I typed nothing back. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. Then another message came in. I didn't know he was still fully with you. I swear. Can we meet? That line did something to me. Not forgiveness. Not even sympathy yet. Just a shift. Because it sounded real. I read it again. Then again. Looking for something fake, something manipulative, something that would let me ignore it. There wasn't anything obvious. So I answered. Where? She replied almost immediately with a cafe downtown. Public. Neutral. Safe. I didn't overthink it after that. If anything, I felt like I needed to see her in person just to make everything stop feeling like footage on a screen. We met the next afternoon. It was one of those quiet cafes in Denver where people sit with laptops and pretend not to listen to each other. The kind of place where nothing dramatic is supposed to happen. I saw her before she saw me. Same woman from the footage. Brown hair, pulled back this time. Minimal makeup. Simple sweater. Not mine. At least not literally. She looked up when I walked in, and I watched the exact moment she recognized me. Her face shifted, not into fear, but into something closer to guilt mixed with uncertainty. Like she didn't know what role she was supposed to play yet. I walked over and sat across from her without saying anything. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "Hi." I nodded once. "Hi." That was it. No yelling. No scene. Just two people sitting across from each other with the same man's lies sitting between them. She looked down at her hands. "I'm really sorry." I didn't answer right away. "Sorry for what?" I asked finally. She swallowed. "For everything. For being in your house. For not knowing. For all of it." There was something about the way she said not knowing that made me pay attention. "What exactly did you think was going on?" I asked. She hesitated, like she was trying to choose the version of the truth that would hurt the least. "He told me you were basically separated," she said. "That you were still living together because of the house, but you weren't together." I watched her carefully. "And you believe that?" I said. "Yes." She didn't try to defend it. Didn't try to soften it. Just said it. I leaned back slightly. "So you were comfortable enough to have a key? To come and go?" Her expression tightened. "I didn't ask for the key. He gave it to me. He said it would make things easier." "Easier for who?" She didn't answer that. Instead, she said, "I didn't know you were still, like this. Living normally." I thought it was more distant. I almost laughed, but it didn't come out. "Did it feel distant to you?" I asked. She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "When you were in my house. In my bedroom. Wearing clothes he bought you to keep there. That landed." She looked down again, this time like she couldn't hold eye contact. "I didn't think about it like that," she said quietly. "Then how did you think about it?" She took a second before answering. Like I was stepping into something that was already ending. That sentence sat between us for a moment. Because in her version, she wasn't stealing anything. She was replacing something that had already been removed. Except I hadn't been removed. I was still there. Living in it. I folded my hands together on the table just to keep them still. "Why the clothes?" I asked. She blinked. "What?" "The clothes he bought you. Why are they all my style?" She frowned slightly, like the question itself hadn't occurred to her before. "I don't know," she said. "He just picked them." "Did you ever think it was strange?" She hesitated again. "I thought it was convenient." Convenient. Like he knew what worked. What looked good. I held her gaze. On me. That was when it clicked for her. I saw it happen in real time. The realization moving across her face, connecting things she hadn't connected before. She sat back slowly. "I didn't," she started, then stopped. "You didn't what?" I asked. I didn't think about who he learned that from. There it was. For the first time, she looked genuinely unsettled. Not just about me. About him. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then she said, "When I was in the house, it didn't feel like I was sneaking." "I know," I said. She looked up surprised. "I saw the footage," I added. Her face flushed. You. I saw everything. She nodded slowly, like she was trying to process that. I wasn't trying to replace you, she said. I know, I said again. And I meant it. That was the strange part. Sitting there, looking at her, I didn't feel like she was the one who built this situation. She walked into something that had already been shaped. Logan had shaped it. He told me you were barely around, she said. That you were always working. That things had been over for a long time. I shook my head slightly. That's not true. I know that now. Another pause. Then she said something that I hadn't expected. He talks about you. I felt my stomach drop again. What do you mean? Not in a bad way, she said quickly. Just normal. Things you like. Things you wear. Places you go. I didn't move. And you didn't think that was strange? I asked. I thought it was just leftover, she said. Like habits. I let out a slow breath. Because that was the part that made everything line up in the worst way. He didn't separate the two lives. He carried me into the other one. The clothes. The style. The familiarity. It wasn't random. It was built for me. I looked at her for a long moment. Are you still seeing him? I asked. She shook her head immediately. No. Not after yesterday. Not after I realized what was actually going on. You believed him before. I know. And now you don't. No. There was no hesitation in that answer. I nodded once. Okay. She looked at me like she expected more. Anger. Accusations. Something bigger. But I didn't have it. What I had was something quieter and heavier. I don't hate you, I said finally. Her eyes widened slightly. You don't have to. I know, I cut in. I just want you to understand something. She nodded. This wasn't just cheating, I said. He didn't just lie. He built something using parts of my life and gave it to you like it was his. She swallowed hard. I didn't know, she said again, softer this time. I believe you. And I did. That didn't make it easier. It just made it clearer. We finished the conversation without anything dramatic. No yelling. No tears. Just understanding the shape of what had happened. When I stood up to leave, she said, I'm really sorry, Hazel. I paused, then nodded. I know. And that was it. Walking out of that cafe, I realized something I hadn't fully admitted to myself yet. I wasn't going to fix this. I wasn't going to try to rebuild anything with Logan. Because whatever version of our marriage he had been living in, it wasn't the same one I had been in. And I didn't want to stay in a place where I could be quietly replaced without even noticing until it showed up in my closet. By the time I got home, I felt different. Not better. Just decided. Logan texted again that night. Can we talk? I looked at the message for a long time before typing back. We're not fixing this. Then I put my phone down and sat in the quiet house, finally understanding that the hardest part wasn't what he did. It was how easily he made space for someone else inside a life that was supposed to be mine. I didn't cry when I decided to end it. That part surprised me. I thought there would be some kind of breakdown, something loud, something that matched what had actually happened. But it wasn't like that. It was quiet. The same kind of quiet everything else had been. Logan came back to the house 2 days later. He texted first, saying he wanted to talk in person. I almost said no. But there was a part of me that needed to see him one more time, just to make sure I wasn't going to second-guess myself later. I unlocked the door and let him in. He looked tired. Not devastated. Not broken. Just worn down, like this had become inconvenient. That bothered me more than anything else. We stood in the living room for a second, both of us not moving. Thanks for letting me come by, he said. I nodded once. Make it quick. He glanced around the house like he was trying to figure out what had changed. The truth was, nothing had. Everything looked exactly the same. Except it wasn't. I've been thinking a lot, he started. I almost stopped him there. That sentence already felt like a setup for something I didn't want to hear. Logan, I said, cutting in, if this is where you tell me it didn't mean anything, don't. He shook his head. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? He hesitated, like he was trying to choose the version of the truth that would land best. I messed up, he said finally. I got into something I shouldn't have, and it went too far. Too far. I let out a slow breath. You didn't just go too far, I said. You built a second version of your life inside this one. That's not fair, he said quickly. I looked at him, really looked at him this time. Isn't it? He didn't answer right away. I talked to Maya, I added. That got his attention. What did she say? She said you told her we were basically over. He looked away. Things weren't good between us. That's not the same thing. He rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't know how to explain it. So you made something up that made it easier for you. I didn't think it would go this far. I almost smiled at that, but there was nothing funny about it. You gave her a key, I said. You bought her clothes to keep here. You let her walk around in our house like she belonged in it. That's not something that just happens. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Why the clothes? I asked one more time. I want you to actually answer me. He looked tired again, like I was asking something unreasonable. I told you. I just picked things I thought looked good. On who? He didn't answer. I stepped closer. Say it. He finally looked at me. On you. The honesty came too late to matter, but it still hit. So you dressed her like me, I said quietly. I didn't think of it like that. But that's what you did. He didn't deny it. And you don't see why that's worse than just cheating? He shook his head slightly. You're making it into something bigger than it is. That was the moment I knew there was nothing left to talk about. Because he genuinely didn't understand it. Or maybe he did, and he just didn't want to admit it. Either way, it didn't change anything. I'm filing for divorce, I said. He looked up fast. Hazel, come on. No. We can fix this. No, we can't. We haven't even tried. I let out a short breath. You tried with someone else. For 6 months. That's not the same thing. It is to me. He took a step closer. You're throwing everything away over one mistake. I laughed, but there was nothing light about it. One mistake doesn't come with a key and a second wardrobe. He went quiet after that. For a second, I thought he might finally say something real. Something that actually acknowledged what he had done. Instead, he said, what do you want me to do? That question felt empty. I want you to leave, I said. And I want you to stop acting like this is something we can negotiate. He stood there, looking at me like he was trying to find a way around it. There wasn't one. Eventually, he nodded. Okay, he said. If that's what you want. It wasn't what I wanted. It was what was left. He packed a bag that night. Not everything. Just enough to leave. I watched him move through the house, taking pieces of his life with him, and it felt strangely similar to watching that footage of Maya. Someone moving through my space like they belonged there. Except this time, I knew exactly what was happening. When he left, he didn't say anything dramatic. No apologies. No last attempt to fix it. He just walked out. And that was it. The next few weeks were a blur of practical decisions. Paperwork. Calls. Meetings. I met with Olivia, the policy advisor Stella recommended, to figure out how to handle everything cleanly. She walked me through the process step by step, calm and efficient, like this was just another situation to solve. In a way, it was. We didn't have kids. The house was the biggest thing to deal with. Assets, accounts, all of it laid out in front of me like something I could organize if I just stayed focused. Logan didn't fight any of it. That part almost bothered me more than if he had. No arguments. No pushback. Just agreement. Like he knew he didn't have a position to stand on. Or like he had already moved on mentally before I even caught up. I moved out about a month later. Not because I had to. I could have stayed. But the house didn't feel like mine anymore. Every room felt like it had been shared without my knowledge. I found a place in Madison, quieter, smaller, something that felt separate from everything that had happened. Starting over in a different city felt extreme when I first said it out loud. But staying felt worse. The last time I went back to the townhouse was to pick up the rest of my things. I stood in the bedroom for a long moment, looking at the closet. It was empty now. No extra clothes. No misplaced pieces. Just mine. And somehow that didn't make it better. Because I knew how easily it had stopped being just mine without me noticing. I closed the door and walked out without looking back. It's been 8 months now. I'm not going to say I'm completely over it. I don't think that's how this works. But I'm steady. I have my own place. My own routine. My own space that feels like it belongs to me again. Logan and I don't talk. The last thing I heard was that things with Maya didn't last. Apparently once everything came out, it just fell apart. I don't know if that's karma or just reality catching up. I don't really think about it much anymore. Except sometimes, when I'm getting dressed or putting something away, I catch myself checking. Just making sure everything in my space is actually mine. And that's the part that stayed. Not the cheating. Not even the divorce. It's the feeling that someone else was living a version of my life right next to me, and I didn't see it until it showed up in my closet. And I still don't know if what he did was just a bad affair. Or something a lot more disturbing that I was lucky to get out of. It's been 8 months now. I'm not going to pretend I'm completely over it, because I'm not. But I'm steady. My life feels quiet again in a way that actually belongs to me. I have my own place now in Madison. It's smaller, simpler, but every single thing in it is mine. Nothing feels shared. Nothing feels borrowed. Nothing feels like it was chosen by someone else for someone else. And I didn't realize how important that was until it was taken from me without me even noticing. Because the truth is, it wasn't just the cheating that stayed with me. It was the way he did it. The way he didn't just lie to me, but recreated pieces of me somewhere else. The way he picked clothes he had only ever seen on me and handed them to someone else like it meant nothing. The way he made space for another woman in my life without ever removing me from it. That's the part one still think about sometimes. Not loudly. Not in a way that ruins my day. Just quietly. Like when I'm putting away laundry or getting dressed in the morning and I pause for a second longer than I used to. Because now I check. Not out of fear. Just out of awareness. I make sure everything I see is actually mine. And maybe that sounds small, but it doesn't feel small to me. It feels like taking something back that I didn't even know I had lost. I don't hate Maya. I don't even think about Logan much anymore. If anything, I think about how easy it was for him to live two versions of the same life at once, and how I never saw it until it showed up in something as simple as a sweater. That still doesn't sit right with me. Because cheating is one thing. Lying is one thing. But quietly replacing someone while they're still there. That feels like something else entirely. So I guess this is the part one keep coming back to. Was this just a bad affair that got out of control? Or was I slowly being turned into someone he could copy, replace, and rearrange whenever it was convenient for him? And if I hadn't found that sweater, how long would it have taken me to realize I wasn't the only one living my life?